Welcome to another High Ground podcast. I'm CVW,
Callum?
and today we're looking at ambiguity in films. You know what? I think films these days, everybody you get spoon fed.
Yeah.
Everybody wants the answers. They want to walk out the cinema. It's like in the 80s, you know, with horror films especially.
Oh, yeah.
How you've got to walk out of the cinema feeling safe. That's why you vanquish the villain and everything is safe. And I think now the way society is, you have to be dictated to that we've got a linear story. That the ending is the ending, and you know what, we can't really think, because if we think, that means we might start a revolution. No, we can't. We might actually rebel against the crap that they're sending.
Have some brain cells. I think as well. Like now, a lot of films are trying to set up sequels and franchises, so they're not looking at making the plot itself ambiguous. So there is no room for ambiguity when you're trying to introduce. I mean, there are examples, but Blade Runner being one. But you can't introduce ambiguity into a storyline if you're thinking of the next one already. In my opinion, not well enough. Whereas I think I tried to think of loads of films that were ambiguous, and like the reason I liked them, and these films most of them don't have sequels. I don't know about you, Steve.
Nah, the only one that really had a sequel was Blade Runner, and I was always afraid with 2049. This was going to be the turning off point for me. Was when they said Deckard is a replicant.
Yeah.
And they did it, and it left the door open about Gaff.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow.
Yeah, I think
is Gaff you got to asking, is Gaff a replicant?
Yeah, not Deckard.
And I was like, wow. And you don't and there's supposed to say, Blade Runner for 2049 is probably doing a sequel, because you went with Deckard. You're still wondering, is he a replicant? If he is, how could he have a child?
Yeah.
With Rachel, Rachel is a replicant, but Blade Runner is not a sort of. It was a studio release that should never have been made. Everyone was expecting a blockbuster, which it wasn't. The true fans loved it. The critics loved it, but the audiences at about 3 hours just turned off, because they weren't wanting a thinking film.
Yeah.
I can't see them attempting a film like that in some time, because everything goes onto Netflix and streaming services now.
Yeah, I mean, I think most of these films that I could think of were actual box office bombs, with the exception of the Kubrick films I could think of. I think because of who Kubrick was, it sort of pre-arranged the fact that the box office would be big with him, because he was popular at the time, wasn't he? But most of these films that I could think of, they weren't big box office hits. I mean, the main one I'm thinking of that was a hit afterwards, again like Blade Runner, is Fight Club.
Yeah.
Fight Club's quite ambiguous
but that wasn't a hit at the time.
No, exactly, yeah, and things like even John Carpenter's The Thing, that has a really ambiguous ending.
I love the ending. I see that watching that. It's like,
that famous line of like, well, let's just see what happens. Yeah. That is what you want to think when you watch an ambiguous film.
Yeah.
Well, let's just see what happens, and if nothing happens, then fuck it. But that's sort of missing, I think, from films now, and I haven't seen it. I mean, to be honest, I watched a film last night that was quite ambiguous that I've always been meaning to see. A film called Hereditary.
I heard of it.
It's the guy who did it, Ari Aster's just done a film called Midsummer that's been quite well received, and that was a really ambiguous sort of what the hell's going on horror film, and I haven't had that sort of horror film is the one that scares me. And I like that. That's probably the last ambiguous film I've seen in a long time, apart from Blade Runner 2049. I think, but that was the big one, wasn't it, for us?
Yeah, Blade Runner 2049 listen, that was the film that was going to be either going to be a sequel for me. Yes, this is a worthy successor to Blade Runner.
Yeah.
It's going to be.
Or this is.
I don't want to see this film ever again. I walked out of that. It's for a big money studio pick to actually walk out the cinema with that feeling that I've just watched something. Because I get more out for smaller films. I mean, don't get me wrong, I do love, as you know, and everybody who's listening to this knows, that's been listening to the High Ground podcast knows that we actually do love these mainstream movies.
Yeah.
But there's a different feeling you get when you watch like a smaller film that grabs your attention, grabs your heart and everything. So to walk out of a Blade Runner, I just is Gaff, the whole, like you go back the whole thing with Gaff.
Yeah.
because is he a replicant? And it's the sort of thing that you can actually you watch the film, then you chat with your mates, or you're thinking about it for days, the ending of it, and that's
true filmmaking, isn't it? I mean, I think like if Ambiguity works, then it both does and doesn't matter towards the plot and the makeup of the film. It does in a way, in the sense that if the film's supposed to be ambiguous, then it adds to the mystery, but also it doesn't matter because you don't need to solve that mystery. It can be left hanging in the air. You know, like you say about the Deckard being a replicant thing. That was one of the things that worried me, like which cut's going to be quote unquote canon, and they didn't even acknowledge it, which I liked. Like any of your cuts could be canon because they don't specifically acknowledge that. You know, Deckard is a replicant. It's implied and it's suggested, you know, through the dream sequences mainly, isn't it? But it's the same with what was the other one? The end of The Shining. That's always been my favourite. What the hell's going on here? Like
the picture.
Yeah.
That freaked me out.
Yeah, that is freaky because you don't know what's going on.
Now, is it history repeating itself as a time? Yeah. You know, and I was like...
Or, like, I always thought when I was younger, he's been trapped in the hotel forever now, waiting for the next caretaker.
Yeah.
Like you say, history repeating itself. But then I think Kubrick was the master of ambiguity at the time, you know, 2001 as well. If you can work out what the hell was going on at the end of that, then you can have a medal. But the interesting thing about that is the end in the novelization by Arthur C. Clarke was actually explained, and loads of people switched off because, you know, the end of that film is famous at the start of the child and the score, and then it just ends, and you don't need to know what happens. And that, I do miss that.
Going on about explaining things, it's like I love Donnie Darko.
There's another big one. Yeah.
And when I started, this very first got it's got one of my favourite scenes where they play Head Over Heels by Tears for Fear. And you introduced every character, which is absolutely fantastic. And I was there from day one on that film.
Yes.
And it's just because there's a story behind it. It's too long for this. And when they did the director's cut, I watched 10-15 minutes of it, and they explained it, and I'm like, I don't want this explained, but I have my opinion of it, and I like that. I don't want the director to tell me.
Yeah.
It's like I read this thing about the band R.E.M. about how when they were explaining about the meanings of songs, and just because it might mean something to Michael Stipe, the lead singer, you know, it could mean something to someone else.
Yeah,
there's no right or wrong answers. When you listen to a piece of music, you don't have a commentary going on or a director's cut or something coming out there saying this is what this song means.
This is what we really mean. Yeah.
So unless it's a song that has a specific meaning, like Everybody Hurts, it's going on the whole R.E.M. thing. If it doesn't have a specific thing, it can mean anything to anybody. So that's
as
good.
Art should.
Yeah.
I mean, I think someone who grasps this really well in the modern age is Tarantino. You know, like his earlier films are laced with ambiguity. You know, like what's in the box. Sorry, that's 7. What's in the briefcase that's gold? Like, what could that possibly be? Well, you don't need to know. And Reservoir Dogs. What happened at the heist? Well, you don't really need to know. You just know that it happened.
Who actually shot who? Because he got the mysterious bullet.
Yeah.
And listening in the background to the audio, does Pink live or is he shot? And
it doesn't matter.
No.
Like, I mean, in terms of in your own mind, it's so fun to go through, and I think that's the rise of fan theories have come with this in modern films. Although some of those can be a little bit tiring sometimes, but the idea of like in your own mind, you have. I think now the term is headcanon.
Yeah.
So like if you say, well, in my headcanon, that's how that's explained, or you know that. I like that sense of like building a universe in your own head as well as watching the one unfold on the screen. I think that's what filmmaking should be.
Yeah.
It should. See, with things like novels, it's hard to do because a lot of the explaining has to be done in a written form, whereas films are the perfect medium to sort of show or even imply something. Even in the sense of like showing it for a few frames and making you think, did I just see what I thought I saw there? You know?
Yeah, like when Tyler Durden used to splice
yeah.
into into children's films.
Yeah,
so they did when such and such and such and such meet, and all you see is
and also Brad Pitt related, weirdly, and in Seven at the end when spoilers if you've not seen it, but you probably should have by now. When Gwyneth Paltrow's head's delivered in the box, what's in the box? There's a subliminal flash of her popping up as they're discussing the last sort of the sin, and it took me ages to even notice it. And it's that's the sort of ambiguity that you think, did I just see what I thought I saw there, or was that a mistake? Was that me doing that? I love that sort of stuff. That's
tell you one that's got me, and this is just it's a film I haven't seen in years, but I still love it. It's one of these ones I've got to be in the right mood. Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind.
I've still not seen that.
I'm not just this is spoilers, but spoilers. The ending you don't know where they'll get together, but it's done with different cuts. And you can count the amount of cuts there are.
Yeah,
it's like, do they get together or don't they? And I've always maintained that if you're in a positive state of mind and you're positive in a relationship, they get together.
Yeah.
But if you're not, then they don't get together. At the end of the day, it's them just going over and over and over and over
and that's
again.
Fantastic that your mental attitude would affect the ending of the film, even though the film's been edited, cut, and done a certain way. That filmmaking where you can interpret the ending according to your own, sort of mental state, I suppose, like, for want of a better term, that's great filmmaking.
Yeah.
And there's not many films I've seen do that, even ambiguous films. It's hard to do it, like you just said. With I haven't seen that, and I've only seen one of his films. Is it Be Kind, Rewind?
Yeah, Be Kind, yeah.
And I don't think that's even nearly remotely as. But it's a talent that we're sadly not seeing very much of because of how pushy sort of mainstream franchises are, I suppose.
Everything has to link together because it's all about making the next sequel and getting the big names. Because if you don't get big names, there's no point in having a big cinema release.
Exactly, yeah. And I think this is something even Star Wars suffers from now. Like, they make the galaxy far, far away smaller and smaller by connecting everyone. I really just want to see a character who isn't related to someone else.
I noticed that the other day when I was watching Revenge of the Sith.
Yeah.
I know on Kashyyyk and a big Kashyyykas.
I know what you're going to say.
Yeah, who do they meet? Who does Yoda meet?
On a planet of billions of Wookiees.
Tarfals and Chewbacca. Fan service. That's all it was for.
Yeah.
So it's.
It's fair enough if you follow main characters like Kylo Ren being related to Han Solo. That's fair enough. But I don't want Rey to be related to anyone, and I really would be disappointed a little bit if they do that in Episode 9.
We don't need these things explained. You've got all these people bitching off about because they wasted 2 years of their lives building up fan theories about Snoke.
Yeah,
why can't characters just be there, killed off, and then that's it? Why do they have to be?
And isn't the fun of a fan theory that you thought of something, and even if it's not true, you go, oh, well, I thought this would have happened, but that's cool, that's different.
But I wasted 2 years of my life on this theory.
Did you really?
I wasted 10 years of my life having in my head the perfect ending for the Pirates of the Caribbean franchise, how I wanted to see Jack Sparrow go out.
Yeah.
Then I saw Salazar's Revenge, it's Dead Men Tell No Tales internationally, and the ending to that is the perfect ending for Jack and.
But it's not necessarily what you thought.
No. Did I feel like I'd wasted 10 years of my life having this ending in my head that didn't? No, I felt they did get with a better ending. I wasn't crying because it didn't end the way
your ending. Yeah.
I was like, wow, that's the real ending how I wanted it. Pirates of the Caribbean ending, one part, that's it. It was the perfect.
How boring would art be if what you wanted came true? If if authors or like directors message people and says, "Oh, how do you want it to end?" But then,
God, no,
that would be
no.
It's not their vision then. Like if a film disappoints me because of its ending, I won't berate the director, or if it's not an issue to do with their competency or technicality, I won't then sit there and slag off that film because because it disappointed me plot-wise. That's just what happens sometimes. Sometimes you like a plot and sometimes you don't, but it doesn't. Game of Thrones is the big one with this. It wasn't ambiguous by any stretch of the imagination, but just how many, like, this petition to refilm season 8, it's ridiculous because you didn't like it, get over yourself. And we've said this many times, but it really annoys me that even fans are in that mentality that they can't accept ambiguity anymore. Well, I'm annoyed because Snoke was killed off for no reason. Well, that happens in real life, and I can't tell you how many times I looked through those theories and thought, not going to happen, not going to happen, not going to happen. It's not Boba Fett.
But Boba Fett, I like the fact we still don't know if Boba Fett is.
Yes, there's a great ambiguity in an otherwise unambiguous franchise. Anyway.
I always thought, and this is because I'm not into the expanded universe or anything like that. I'm just pure Star Wars movies, and I am original generation as well. So, but to me, the ending of Return of the Jedi was so perfect. For years, I just thought, what happens to them afterwards? I don't know. I'll be honest,
I don't want to know.
Don't know. But doesn't make me any less of a fan by not caring what happens. It's not that I don't care. That's the one way of saying it. Is
bothered. Not
bothered.
No. Yeah.
I always thought when they're celebrating on, it's like you take the perfect photograph of the ending, and that's it. It's all frozen in time.
Yeah.
That's it.
Snapshot. I think that's why a lot of films in the 80s used to end on snapshots, wasn't it?
Yeah.
That was the last image you saw to remember that film by.
But I'll go on, just came up with one. One that I actually like, with the American Pie movies, especially the first two and the American Reunion. And the first ones, they go off to do greatness.
Yeah.
And you come back to them.
And they haven't.
And their lives haven't panned out the way you expect.
Yeah.
Trainspotting 2, Renton and the others, especially Renton, is not in the place where you'd expect.
Yeah, or want them to be.
Yeah. Because you invest so much time with them. But Trainspotting 2, for me, is one of the best ones that's come out in the last 10 years. Because it's not what
you
expected.
Yeah.
And, I mean, at the end of the Trainspotting, you don't know what's going to happen to Sick Boy and the money he's got.
No.
What is he going to do? Use it to change his life around? Or is he going to go become a complete and utter smackhead again? What's Renton going to do?
Yeah.
Is Begbie going to go after them? What about Sick Boy? And, we don't have all these answers until Trainspotting 2, which doesn't ruin it.
Yeah.
But, we had about 20 years for that.
Yeah, on the same token, you don't need to know what happens in between the gap either.
No.
Like, I don't need to know what happened between episode 6 and episode 7.
No.
You just know that some bad shit has gone down, but you don't need to know what it was, or you don't need to have, like... I think when they bring up the comics and the novels and the games, it's nice to delve into that universe and out again, but I prefer expanded universe stuff to take place with people you've never seen before, or characters you've only glimpsed for a second or something like that. That's the ambiguity in that sense that I like. But yeah, I think horror's a big example of this as well now. Horror thrives in the independent scene because you have these really talented directors bring a single vision with no sequel, usually with no sequels, and they hit it out of the park in an hour and 30 minutes. Whereas when you have things like Friday the 13th or Halloween or Nightmare on Elm Street, you have to keep that continuity going, and the only way to do that is through sequels. You have to.
The only thing I notice is you have to vanquish the villain, but you've also got to give the whole. Especially, I haven't really watched a horror film since the early 90s, but you've got to have it so that you can go to bed safely.
Yeah.
But then you have the little bamf at the end. But can you?
Yeah.
You've got to know the boogeyman might still be out there.
I think like the end of Nightmare on Elm Street when he drags the mother through the door.
Yeah.
That really awful looking dummy now, but if you cut the rest of the sequels out, that's a great ambiguous ending for me because you think, well, is he dead or were they just dreaming again? That doing stuff in the dream world was what made that franchise so entertaining, I think, because you can do unlimited things and that's what Ambiguity should be. It should be dreamlike. You shouldn't know what's going on from times. A lot of the European directors now do things like that. Like Lars von Trier and the guy who did Drive, Nicholas Winding Refn. Their films are very ambiguous, and it's nice to just have that mystery there. I mean, I don't know if you can think of any more big ones that you thought of on this.
I don't know what thing I did. You keep playing my head, even though I can't stand the film. It's Terminator Salvation.
Oh, right.
Where you don't know what the who's his name, the Aussie guy.
Oh, Sam Worthington.
Yeah, you don't know what his crime was.
Yeah.
But I couldn't care because by that film I couldn't care about
that's
that film.
That's an ambiguity that isn't in favour of the film, isn't it?
Yeah, it's like, you know, it might have actually been alright to actually know what he did.
Yeah.
But I like the way that you don't. But at the end of the day, the film was terrible, so I didn't really care for it.
There hasn't been a good Terminator film since 1991, in my opinion.
I like some more of the original Terminator.
Yeah, the first one is. See, there's the ambiguity in the first one as well. You know, before you know who Arnie is in it, you're thinking like, who the hell is this guy? Like, what? Why is he so powerful? And then when Kyle Reese explains who he is, that's when you think, wow, this guy's scary. Like, I mean, Cameron doesn't do ambiguity very much, I don't think. But the first Terminator is an example of him honing the craft of that. You know, like setting up disparate story elements that, once they're explained, they're made stronger in this sense rather than weaker. But there's not many people that can do that sort of thing now, I don't think, that can have ambiguity and then explain it and still have it be enjoyable. I think the explaining away just sort of does it in for me now.
Nowadays, like you say, everything's sequel, so you have to explain it, so it sets up for the next one, and the next one, and the next
returns, one. Yeah. I mean, even the MCU, which I loved a bit, there's not really much ambiguity in there, but it kind of works in that because you need to have the possibility of setting up the next character and the next character's sequel and then the inevitable team up. You know, there's a formula for these films, but it's a formula that does work in this sense. Whereas with things like DC, it doesn't work.
No.
You know, but we do riff on DC quite a lot here. I'm not saying I hate them. It's just
I didn't sat through. I slept through an hour of it, and I didn't feel like I missed anything. Was that Aquaman?
Oh, Aquaman.
Yeah. I wanted to see it because it's got Tamara Morrison and Dolph Lundgren in it, and I fell asleep for an hour. And my fiance said, "What did I miss?" My fiance said, "You missed about an hour," and I was like, "Okay, I still get the gist of the film." And I was like, "Do I really want to watch the hour I've missed?" Oh, no. No. But superhero films are the ones that you really...
It can't work, can it? I mean, I suppose Watchmen sort of tried it, didn't it? That's quite an ambiguous... Good. Yeah, I like Watchmen. I'm quite a fan of Watchmen.
And I don't like anybody that says this is overlong or any negative criticism about it.
Really, doesn't it?
Watchmen's a brilliant film. I like the fact that they took the alien out and replaced it with... This is the thing, Zack Snyder, if he can use his own colour palette, and he's got complete range to do things. He can do strokes of genius. I mean, I read the comic book after I watched the film.
Yeah, so I'm not a fan of the comic book, but I like the film.
Yeah.
I think it's way overrated than it should be. It's not bad by any means because it's Alan Moore, isn't it? But I just think the film is much better. Like, I think for me the comic book's a bit cold, and the film has sort of glimpses of hope and yeah, I think it just works better. I can't explain it. I don't know why. It's like V for Vendetta. I think the film is much better than the comic.
When I read the comic book after I saw the film, I was like, they say that Watchmen was unfilmable, and I thought that V for Vendetta was a harder thing to tackle.
Yeah, I honestly agree with that. I think a lot of Alan Moore is unfilmable, and I think that's the reason he keeps his name off a lot of things, isn't it? But even if you go to those sort of films, V for Vendetta is quite ambiguous. You know, you don't need to see what he looks like.
Judge Dredd.
Or Judge Dredd, yeah. See, Dredd was done perfectly with Carl Urban.
Yeah.
Because he acts with his chin. You know, not just that, but acting chops, isn't he? But, he doesn't take his mask off, his helmet off for the whole film, and it works because Judge Dredd should be this mysterious character who carries out his own justice. You know, as well as he works for the system, he does carry out extrajudicial justice as well. So Judge Dredd's always been like a sort of hero villain for me, a bit like the Punisher, I think, but in the future. So yeah, I think characters like that aren't clear-cut heroes, they thrive well in ambiguity. Again, Deckard.
Yeah.
You know, it's the old hard-boiled detective type, isn't it? And all those films, as studio as they were in the 40s and 50s, all the what are they called? Film noir, sorry. They rest on their ambiguity, don't they? Detective stories. And yeah, I don't know. I'm just rambling, but yeah, it is something that's definitely missing.
We don't find out we never actually see the face. And
No.
Even when there's the fire,
yeah,
you see him from behind.
Yeah.
And
That's freaky, that scene.
You turned me on to the new Halloween, the Danny McBride one.
Oh yeah.
And I like the way that even when Michael Myers is in the sanitarium, is it?
Yeah.
You actually don't see his face. They cut it, so you never see a clear shot of what he looks like.
Yeah. You sort of almost get a tease.
Yeah.
And then it's...
And it's sort of like... You don't want to know what he looks like, because it's... You just... His face is the mask.
Yeah.
And I like that. I thought it was brilliant.
As an extension of that example, actually, in the original 78 John Carpenter one, his mask does actually get knocked off at the end by accident, and you see his face underneath. But so many people think they see a deformed, scarred face, and John Carpenter just said, "I just filmed the guy as he looked." Like you put that onto the film. And so many people actually thought, I could have swore blind he was... I mean, for years I was like, yeah, some guy's got like a scar on his eye and he's deformed. And you watch it again and you're like, oh, actually, no, he isn't. Like, I just thought that. And that's true power in filmmaking. I think the Halloween films are the only slasher franchise that can do ambiguity quite well, because Michael Myers is not... You know, he's not solid like Jason, and he's not a comedy actor like Freddy. So he's just silent and relentless, and the angles that Carpenter uses at the end of the first one and of this one as well, where it sort of goes through each room in the house and there's nothing there. That's how horror works with ambiguity.
That was... I don't do horror, but that was scary. I just thought it was... I thought it was a great film, and it actually amped up the tension.
And I hope it brings back that sort of... I mean, it's a kind of reboot, I think. It's like a sequel. What is it? They call it a recall.
Yeah.
It's like a sequel to the original, but imagine none of the other ones happened. So I think if it's done well, then we can expect this sort of thing from all the other horror franchises. Because I think Blumhouse.
You look at Jason.
Yeah.
It's always at the end of the film. You always get his mask
always
knocked off, so you always know what he looks like. You always know what the monster looks like.
But and he is a monster.
Yeah.
Like he is, like, in the traditional sense, more a monster than the other two, I think.
Yeah. Frankenstein.
The Frankenstein comes there. He always at the end, dies, but you think, well, is he dead though?
Yeah.
Oh, not him. Sorry, the monster.
Yeah.
And Dracula as well. The old Christopher Lee, the Hammer ones. You always think, could he come back? Maybe.
But you need that fear.
That's
still,
a different.
So.
Yeah. I mean, Christopher Lee was good at that sort of playing the same role but different each time.
Yeah, Christopher Lee. He's brilliant.
R.I.P. Bless him. But
he always thought he was immortal, not because he played Dracula.
He is an actual count.
Yeah.
Not just in fiction.
Yeah.
But I mean, there was another one I thought of film, but I can't think of it now. Maybe come back to me.
1984. The ending.
Yeah. Oh God. Yeah. Even the novel is some.
It was always one of these films I sat down and didn't expect to watch, but because it's so dark.
It's very dark.
And then the ending, and then I was thinking about it because I was half asleep when I watched it. Yeah. And the next day, when your brain processes everything, I was like,
it's quite hard to watch, actually. If you're not in the right frame of mind, that's on the list of films you shouldn't watch if you feel depressed or down or.
It's good.
Yeah, it is good. Yeah.
John Hurt.
Yeah. And
he rest in peace as well. God, there's so many good ones gone.
I think it's Richard Burton's last role in 1984. I'm sure it is. He plays O'Brien. But I mean, that's a fantastic example of ambiguity feeding fear, because like Winston's always in the film and the novel as well. They play with the system, the state. Sorry, plays with fear and people's perception of it, and that can only really be done with ambiguity. You know, what's in Room 101 for me? Like again, it's one of those examples of taking your mental state into the films, thinking, what would be in Room 101 for me? And I think that's truly scary. It'd just be a room full of spiders for me. But
for me,
it might be many things. Actually, I don't know. But
a world without love.
Yeah, we'll go with that. Yeah, that'll do. But yeah, I mean, I'm trying to think of the film I was going to speak of today, and it's left me. I don't know, maybe.
THX 1138.
Oh yeah, I mean, early George Lucas was really ambiguous, isn't it? Even American Graffiti. I mean, the only part about that film I don't like is the ending where it explains what everyone did after the film. I'd like that to have just been. I know some of it is like they died in Vietnam, but
that's a genre. Even though he created the genre of the teen movie,
I get the sense that was kind of asked for by the studio.
You need to have because it would have been,
will probably. Well, I don't know. It was in '70s, which was New Hollywood, wasn't it? So happy endings weren't necessarily needed back then. That was the start of doing darker films, wasn't it?
But it was also the genre that they picked.
Yeah, so I think something like one of those.
He was there to do a good old-fashioned fun movie.
Yeah.
That was it. You can't really follow these characters, at least in the first one. I haven't seen the sequel. So it'd be like going back to American Pie. At the end of American Pie, they were all going off to their futures, which nice and happy, not especially with Finch.
Yeah.
You expect to go for greatness, and he
lies about it, doesn't he? So he's been around the world, and
he hasn't. He's just working at a coffee shop. Or something,
and how many people can relate to that?
Yeah,
you know, it's. I reject the idea that some of these teen comedies are just toilet humor, because they do have deeper. American Pie, especially, I think that was the last great sort of epic teen comedy. But again, it wouldn't have happened without American Graffiti.
Yeah. Harold and Kumar.
Especially
the way it deals with racism and everything.
Yeah.
I just the thing with I always compare Harold and Kumar and the American Pie movies, because everything else they take the blueprint but take the heart away.
Yes.
And at least with American Pie and Harold and Kumar's, if you take away all the toilet humor, they've all got a good heart, and that's the thing that grounds these films.
Yeah.
But you know, it's like anything becomes big. You can sit down and you can write what makes the film.
Yeah.
In the construct, but you can also then you take it and you go, well, we're missing the heart. You got to dig deep down and find out why these were a success. It's not because look how many spin-offs, how many rip-offs there are of those films.
And they're all rubbish.
Even the straight-to-DVD American Pie movies, which I won't watch.
Yeah.
If they would go, the only reason they're straight-to-DVD is because they were easy to throw out there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and you get a cameo from someone from the main series and Bob's Your Uncle. But that's totally true. Like, what can you take away each time from each film? Like, what's the maximum amount of factors you can take away from the list, and then you still have something at the end which gives it the essence? I think that's what works with those sort of it works better, and that's the sort of ambiguity that works in comedy. What can you take away that strips it away till it's like a basic element? And that's definitely. Oh, I know what I was going to talk about. Sorry, it's a total tone change. But
tell them about these.
Star Trek: The Motion Picture.
Yeah.
Got to be one of the most ambiguous films ever made. You know, like, what the hell is going on?
Vija!
Yeah, Vija, yeah. But that was another bomb, because I think they were expecting Wrath of Khan, weren't they? First, you know, like this great epic Star Trek. This is our first movie, let's make it good. Oh wait, sorry, we just did an episode.
I liked it.
I mean, it's one of those films like The Phantom Menace that when you go and watch it again, you realise the genius that is actually behind it. And it is a good movie. I mean, it's better than some of Nemesis and.
I'm not a Trekkie, and this is not. Before anybody jumps on the bandwagon, say Star Wars fan. It's Next Generation. Yeah, I tried to watch the original Star Trek. Deep Space Nine was always good. Either good or bad. Couldn't really get into all the other stuff. But the motion picture to me, because I watched it a few years ago, after a long while of not
Yeah, it's
watching
not
it.
bad, really, actually.
I actually thoroughly enjoyed it, and this is the one that's
It's very
derided.
well made.
It is, and yeah, I like the whole Voyager thing, the Voyager probe, and bringing it back to reality.
Yeah.
And I actually, you know, you can't give Star Wars out, you know, because it was a knock-on effect to Star Wars.
Oh, of course.
And from you know this, they were going to do a Star Trek TV series, but when Star Wars came out, boom, straight to the movies.
Phase 2.
Yeah. So that's why I like the motion. I like the motion picture because it was Star Trek, but it was Star Trek and it had brains.
They had the balls to try basically filming an episode for cinemas, and I've actually found the last Star Trek film, Beyond. That's what I liked about that. It felt like a TV. It felt like an episode instead of following on from the plot from the last film, and I quite like when they do that and it succeeds. I mean, they have done it and it's not succeeded. So Insurrection was basically an episode film and it didn't work. But yeah, the motion picture is like one of the... It's what Star Trek should be. It's a voyage and it's into the unknown and it's the Enterprise meets God, which was Roddenberry's summary of every episode of Star Trek.
Sort of like when they did it in Star Trek 5.
Oh, yeah.
If Star Trek was released today,
yeah,
as it is, the motion picture, it might have been more of a success because I think we're more open-minded now. Towards
and our TV is a lot more cerebral now.
Yeah, so I would, you know, I would be tempted if they ever did a good deluxe box set of the original, just the Star Trek motion picture. I thought I'd go. I mean, I'm gonna. This would get me lynched, but I think of all the Star Trek films, it's probably the strongest in my opinion. Because it's the
bravest as well, because it's the first, and it's, you know, and they brought on someone like Robert Wise who did West Side Story before, and had only dabbled in science fiction. I think he did The Day the Earth Stood Still, you know. So he wasn't an incompetent director by any stretch of the imagination, but he wasn't necessarily a Star Trek guy either, which was what worked with the Abrams, or a couple of the Abrams ones. You know, they brought a guy on who wasn't a massive Star Trek fan, so he had to adapt it to people that didn't like it also.
But that works because if you've got someone that's too much of a fanboy, you're literally ticking all the boxes.
You get lost.
Well, you got this has got to be in here because you got this. It's got to be here. They've got because we've got to play fan service to this, and then. But if you've got someone that can see the bigger picture, and go, well, what works, 100%. What doesn't work, and bang.
Yeah.
Then again, you get all the fanboys. I've had conversations with people before who don't like certain things in the MCU because it doesn't follow the comic books.
Yeah.
It's not.
It's an adaptation. You're not watching. I don't read the comics if you wanna.
I read the Infinity Gauntlet after I watched Infinity War.
Oh yeah.
I enjoyed it, but you don't see me bitching off about because it's not like the comic book and the comic's not like the film.
Or the book's better than the film. You know, that's the common argument, isn't it?
And the Japanese story for the Wolverine completely different, and I like them both equally. Dark Phoenix for the comic book.
Oh yeah, I mean that's a given.
Yeah. Sorry, you've tried two attempts and.
No, but it's that sort of mentality is annoying to me. You know, like
it's not like the comic book
because it is the book. You know, it's not. I mean, if you read going back to Blade Runner, if you read the original novel, it's based on D'Angelo's Dream of Electric Sheep. It's nothing like the film, and I think most people go into it and expecting exactly what they've seen in the film, and not much of the film actually happens in the novel. But same with Frankenstein. Every single person that I've recommended the novel to, because I've overstudied it at university, sadly.
Be proud.
Yeah, I'll try to. They go in expecting the lightning and it's alive, and you know, there's a chapter in Frankenstein where the monster's being made, and then the next chapter he's alive. You know, so it's that. I think good adaptations take what's good about the original, like you say, the heart, and they bring it in, and they pulled their own ambiguities around that heart, and that's how you do that. I can't stand the book's better than the film. Even if it doesn't matter. It's not it's a moot point. You're watching a film, you're not reading a book.
I won't be. This is the ending of Time Traveler's Wife. I watched the film Time Traveler's Wife.
Yeah.
And I really enjoyed it. Okay, yeah. And I was determined for. So I already see it twice in the cinema, but I was determined to read the book. And the fastest time I ever read a book was in a week in between seeing Time Traveler's Wife, and I was determined to see it again. And the ending to Time Traveler's Wife, with one thing, spoilers. The ending of the book, is set in the future where the Richard McAdams character is still waiting, and he comes. Do you seen it?
I haven't, no, but I do. I have heard people say about the ending.
It is more. The book's got more of a downbeat ending.
Yeah,
it is, and it's. I'm glad they ended the film the way they did.
Yeah,
because it would have bummed the ending out.
Yeah, sometimes the bum ending's not what you want, is it? I mean, sometimes it annoys me when they tack on the happy ending, but then sometimes you do need a happy ending now and again.
Yeah, the ending of Chasing Amy is not what you expect. Oh, there's a film I saw recently where the ending is La La Land.
Oh, La La Land, yeah.
Brilliant ending.
Yeah, there's a great ambiguous, mainstream genre that when, like you say, every musical you watch years ago, most of them, I would say 90% end happily, because that's what people want in musicals. But then, going into this film, I was thinking, oh god, what am I doing? I don't like musicals. And then the end of this film, we were like, holy crap, like what the hell's going on here? Like, but it worked in the situation, I think, and that's the great thing about it. It does work when it's done correctly. Sometimes, like for me, the most tacked on ending in the history of films ever made is Harry Potter. That whole 30 years, that whole 18 years later sequence annoys the hell out of me in the books, and I just know for a fact that was an editor request to say, can we just have a little bit more after the, and it's not, I wanted to come up with my own idea of what happened. Like we said earlier, at the end of Return of the Jedi, I mean, imagine if they came up to Richard Marquand / George Lucas and said, oh no, sorry, we want a little 5 years later thing tacked on. It just diminishes.
George Lucas say, who's giving the money? Who's ponying up the money here?
Yeah, exactly, yeah. But it would diminish the emotion and the feelings.
I suppose.
And I think that's...
With Harry Potter, it's the whole happy ever after thing.
Yeah. I mean,
and if you know that they get married, it's like girls get, when I grow up, I'm gonna marry the rock star who's number one right now, who I love more than anything else. And I will live happily ever after. Or, everything ramps itself up in a nice, clean way. And I think you need that in that.
Yeah.
Because
I'm all
the audiences today.
Having a nice, clean ending now and again. That I understand that sometimes as well authors can't let go of certain characters, so they have to make a happy ending. But I don't know. For me, that always felt like a bit sort of. Another example that I do like where it's done is Lord of the Rings in the films.
Which
I know you're not a but yeah, like when they keep blacking out the film and then coming back with another bit. I think that really works because, that the book does just end. But in that sense, you've been with these characters for so long, like you have with Harry Potter. But I think just having they chucked it in and now they're back home ending wouldn't have worked. And I don't know why. I can't explain why that works in that, but not in Harry Potter. I just think
the audience.
It feels tacked on to me in Harry Potter, whereas it doesn't in Lord of the Rings.
We disagree. I mean, because as I said, I haven't seen Lord of the Rings since I saw it at the cinema. So I should tell a lie. I saw them on extended cuts.
Oh, they
10 years ago, 10, 12 years ago. I was still with one of my exes at the time. So it's. But I think it's a generational thing with Harry Potter. You need to have the audience.
Like it was with Star Wars.
Yeah, the audience for the generation that grew up after Return of the Jedi weren't as demanding now as the generations the Harry Potter generations, because we need everything all clean cut because it's
explained.
Whereas the Star Wars generation, like I said, is you look at Star Wars 6 years. We're in 77 to 83.
Yeah.
So that's not that much. Whereas the Harry Potter's 7 books.
Yeah.
So you've got it sort of like they've got the kids that whereas the original generation had 6 years with these.
Yeah.
The original the Harry Potter fans that grew up as a kid reading it literally went through their lives. So they want to know that. They want to know that the ending is going to be nice for them because they want their lives as well to have the happy ending. By giving them the happy ending to Harry Potter is sort of saying, your life, when you've just hit 17 or 18, you've been reading Harry Potter, but your mums and dads been reading your Harry Potter, or your two mums or your two dads, whatever family you have all been reading these books to you since you were a kid, and you've grown up with them. So now you want to know what your future's going to be. Well, your future's going to be this. Whereas if you go back to 1990, Back to the Future, your future's not written. It's what anything you want to make of it. So you've got that compared to the ending of Harry Potter, where they say, well, Marty and just like going at the end of tacking on for Back to the Future Part 3, Marty and Jennifer have kids. They don't go to what was it, Dale? Hilldale?
Yeah, that's it, yes.
Glendale. No, where am I Glendale?
Hill Valley?
Hill Valley. Yeah, so
I haven't watched Back to the Future.
I've loved Back to the Future, but wherever it is, they go to their housing estate, Hilldale, I think it is.
Yeah, I think Hill Valley's the town, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And but imagine that if you see like Marty and Jennifer in 2015, because you know what happens to them in one timeline, then the alternative timeline, then But we don't need to know. Like again, snapshot like Return of the Jedi.
Yeah.
But now everything has to be. At the end of at the end of Terminator 2, you don't know if Judgment Day is still going to happen. At the end of Terminator, Judgment Day is going to happen. But now everything, like we were saying, has to be spoon-fed because we have to come out with a happy ending. The heroes have to do this.
Yeah.
It's sort of like, even Captain America has the happy ending.
Yeah. It kind of works though with that.
Oh, that's the best ending.
If they screwed him on a happy ending, I would probably.
That's the ending I would. You know that. Okay, I'm, as a fanboy, big Captain America fan.
That was a long play though, wasn't it? You know, like the whole series to get that ending.
That dance.
The payoff works. Yeah. But I mean, here's one of the biggest screw ups of ambiguity from something in modern times: the prequels, midi-chlorians.
I can handle the midi-chlorians. I can't handle the fact that
midi-chlorians really annoyed me because they're trying to explain something that was mystical in the original trilogy as science. And I know that's what we tend to do now with mysticism, but that is something to me that was quite special in the original trilogy. You know, like you didn't really know what the Force was, and you didn't really know where it came. I mean, you knew like Obi-Wan said it's the Force that binds the galaxy together, but you didn't know what that was really. And then when they said, "Oh yeah, it's just things in our cells," I just thought, "What?
Yeah.
Like, what is this? You've just boiled it down to science, bunch of Nazis."
Not cool. Not cool. That goes to Revenge of the Sith, which is, thank you for bringing this up, I always like the fact that we never knew what Anakin did during the Clone Wars, and then when it turns out that he actually murdered younglings,
the child murder,
and it changes the ending of Return of the Jedi from being he was redeemed, he was just he did stuff, but we don't know what it was.
Yeah.
He's a child murderer. It turns the ending of Return of the Jedi into the worst kind of Catholicism ever, saying on your deathbed you can turn to the light if you repent your sins. Was it Pirates of the Caribbean? One good deed does not make up for 1,000 bad deeds. So he does one good deed by saving Luke and killing the Emperor. He's still a child murderer.
Yeah, which is
and I didn't like that. That pissed me right off.
I mean, if you what would have been forgivable for me? Well, maybe not forgivable. He's still a murderer, but if it had been adult Jedi's, Jedi that could defend themselves, that's different because they're fighting back. But yeah, that scene never sat right with me. The whole, Master Skywalker, what should we do? And I just, cut or bring. What I would have done is bring the troopers in to kill them, and have Anakin turn around so he can't watch, sort of thing. So he's still culpable, but at least then you think, well, I can kind of forgive him. He didn't want to do it.
He's got no blood on his hands
physically,
but it's sort of when they did that. You don't notice it until a few viewings, and you go, wait a minute, this is they have completely knocked the ambiguity out of the Darth Vader character. Because whereas he was after Empire Strikes Back, after you find out that he's Anakin Skywalker, it makes him from being a sympathetic character to an asshole. To be honest with you, he's an asshole that's easily led. I mean, I can understand George Lucas for the fact that he's showing that love is a weakness, and love and fear leads to anger, anger leads to hate, hate leads to suffering. And I can understand all that, but doesn't that? But having it all spelled out what Anakin did during the Clone Wars, it really they did. It really annoyed me, and the whole having Padme. How did Padme die? And you find out she died of a. That makes her a selfish bitch. I didn't like the way that they turned a really strong female character into possibly the weakest one in the series.
Yeah, yeah.
And they turned
Especially
a sympathetic character.
she's supposed to be Leia's mother.
Yeah.
Who's the strongest woman in the series.
Obviously, her step-parents, her adoptive parents were a lot more...
More, figurative,
Yeah, but I didn't...
Yeah, it's weird, isn't it? I think any sort of crime involving children is pretty hard to forgive, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like, which is not to diminish crime against adults as well, but I think when you took this character that was like, he was uber famous, wasn't he, Darth Vader? I mean, he's still, in my opinion, the greatest villain of all time, but he's a character that everyone knows and even in some senses identified with. You know, we've all done stuff in our life that we regret. And you can clearly tell that Vader's always regretting this thing that he's done. And you never knew what it was. Like, you never knew the fight between Obi-Wan and him. You never knew. And, yeah, I mean, I never thought I would actually describe Star Wars as ambiguous in some senses. But Vader was the big part of that. And also, like you say, spinning off of that, the Emperor, like, the first one, you hear about him and you see it. You only see a glimpse of him in Empire Strikes Back and you think, who's this guy? Like, who's this guy that's... And then in Return of the Jedi, you know, like, when he says to... the guy at the beginning about the Emperor's not as forgiving as I am. You think, you strangle people, mate. Like, what's this guy going to be like? That's the sort of like building that mythology ambiguity that I loved as well.
I'm not going to knock on the prequel trilogy because I'm actually enjoying it.
Yeah.
And I've noticed how, especially now since 7, 8, and 9 come out, because come on, you got to have the fanboys, you got to have something to bitch off about.
Yeah.
Now it's like, I remember those films you were slagging off for the past 10 years or so. You're loving now.
The previous bitch fest.
Yeah, so like, we just keep, we can't be happy, can we? We just can't be happy. No. We've always got to have, we've got to hate on the things we love.
Yeah, it's quite ironic, isn't it? Really. Yeah, there's an ambiguity for you.
Yeah. Why? Yeah, I tell you one thing is, through going back to these fan conventions and especially the Star Wars ones I've been to.
Yeah.
Is, I went to my first one I've been to 2 now, so it's just about 2 years ago I went to my first one.
Yeah.
And I was waiting for the negative fanboys to come out. And when you go into these places where people have to travel to get to, you realise that all of these people, and then you watch all the celebration stuff when Kelly Marie Tran, Ahmed Best, when they come on stage and they get these big applauses, because the hardcore community are not the ones that are kicking up a stink. We're the ones that love the characters. But and then you've got all these other ones, the so-called fanboys that are the ones that are kicking up
and
the stink.
Because it's more negative as well, I think it's sort of harder to accept for a lot of the older fan base. Like, because we're not by any means saying that everything's perfect. Like, there are stuff you'd still change, or you would think, oh, I didn't like this bit or that bit, but it's never a case of refilm the whole film and sack that director and this and that, because it's just silly doing things like that. It's just venomous, and I don't like it.
So what do you think about Boba Fett now? Because we know he's the clone of Jango, whereas before he was just this mysterious.
Yeah, see, I really didn't like that as well. And Boba Fett with an Australian accent or New Zealand accent. Yeah, it just doesn't. There's nothing against those accents whatsoever, but I just don't picture Boba Fett having that accent.
I did. It took a while to get used to them replacing the original Boba Fett voice with Tamara Morrison.
Shamefully, I don't actually know the original guy's name.
Me neither. I know Tamara Morrison. I like Tamara Morrison, you see, and I got big shout out to Daniel Logan and Jeremy Bulloch who played your but I like Boba Fett, okay. But
Boba Fett's cool.
Yeah, I don't care who plays him.
There's your 100% ambiguous character from Star Wars. No one before knew anything about Boba Fett, and he said 2 lines in the whole trilogy. Well, not many. And you think, this guy's cool, but I can't explain why. Like,
he looks it.
He just looks, yeah.
I just gotta say, this is a little shout out again. When I see Boba Fett, as cool as Boba Fett is, I think the people who play Boba Fett, especially your Daniel Logan and your Jeremy Bulloch, they're both as cool as Boba Fett is as a character.
Yeah.
They are cool as people. Now, I'm a fan of Boba Fett, but I think Daniel Logan and Jeremy Bulloch are just really nice guys.
Yeah.
But that's me going on my little fanboy little trip here. So
no, but it's that sort of love for a character you know little about that Star Wars does so well. I think, you know, there are entire universes that you could explore in Star Wars with background characters who have seconds of screen time. That's the wonderful nature of that galaxy. I think, like, there's, you know, people, you could go around the cantina in the first one, in A New Hope, sorry, and you could create a backstory for each and every alien in there. I mean, there's probably been done. Yeah, I was going to say, but that's you could do it in episode 7 then, in the cantina scene and that, you know, it's just, that's an ambiguity that's great. Like, you don't know who these characters are, and in your head you're thinking of what they do and who they are, and you know, you can, there's Star Wars name generators on the internet now, so you could just turn your name into a Star Wars name, and it's that great, sort of building a backstory even though you don't have one. That's missing as well from a lot of films. And you know, ambiguity wise as well, Thanos is a great example of this in the MCU. Saying the MCU didn't have any actual line.
Yeah.
When you first see him, you think, unless you're a hardcore fan, I was thinking, who's this purple guy? Like,
yeah.
And it's great seeing him building as the main villain in the background. That's fantastically done.
I don't like the word you just used. Villain. He's not a villain.
No, well,
he's not a villain. It depends on your. It depends on the way you look at it.
Questionable methods, anti-hero. Really.
Yeah, to me, he has logic to what he does. It's the same with Eric Lensher.
He's a 100% villain in Endgame. I think because it's the past version of him that's bitter still. Whereas in Infinity War, I really found it hard to hate him because he's such a, you know, when he says to Tony about, I hope they remember you, like, you know, he has mutual respect that they're trying to fight for what they believe in. Yeah. Whereas I think in Endgame, he's like the old, because it's the older version of him, he's the genocidal, you know, lunatic.
But he still has deep down what he wanted to do. He wanted to cut the universe in half, and he says that rather than going around picking out, he doesn't. It's not the weak. It's not the rich.
Everyone,
It's everyone. It's 50%, and there's logic to what he's doing.
Yeah.
Whereas you could argue that the Avengers are the villains because they are the ones that are trying to stop what. He's trying to make the universe right.
Yeah.
And the Avengers are trying to stop because of passion. Clearly, you know, the whole... the thing back to Jedi is Jedi should not love. Because if you've got love and emotional attachments, that's going to overshroud everything. And that's what the Avengers do.
Yeah.
By stopping what Thanos has done. Thanos says to... about... Was it Nebula's... Gamora.
Yeah.
Says, Gamora's home planet. How after he culled half of it, it's thrived.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. You can see
the both. Yeah, I mean, like you see the logic of the argument, but the way he does it is questionable. You know, killing 50% of people on a planet, still killing 50%.
Yeah.
But it's like, it's not that you can get behind him, but it's almost like you can understand his logic.
Yeah.
As a character, and that makes all, you know, like someone who's the opposite of that is the Emperor. He's just a 100% villain who has no redeemable qualities, and sometimes that's good.
And that's the whole. The Emperor, if the Emperor was in another franchise, it'd be James Bond because he is the. I'm going to take over the world, and I'm going to have all this money. Yeah,
But he's the opposite avatar of Yoda, isn't he? Yoda is wholly good, and he represents the light side of the Force. I mean, the Jedi did questionable things morally, like taking children away from their families, but I think, like, in that sort of sense, like, Star Wars is very clear cut with its black and white, good and bad qualities, and it is an old fashioned Manichaean good versus evil fight, isn't it? Like Lord of the Rings is. You know, there's no sort of, there are some grey areas, but it's more, in that sense, it's not ambiguous. You know, there are good guys and there are bad guys, and they have uniforms.
You look at Luke Skywalker.
Yeah.
From A New Hope to Return of the Jedi.
Yeah.
White,
it's something you pointed out.
Black, yeah.
Yeah, I never noticed that.
Because they have to do that though, because that progression has to go.
He moves from the spectrum. Yeah.
Because when you know, it's a subconscious. When he's wearing black in Return of the Jedi, he could follow his father to the dark side.
Yeah.
And that's tension.
Essentially, he starts with, like, if you forgive the imagery, he starts as a maiden. You know, like, he's also the princess, like, in that he's pure and good and wearing white, and then you get to Empire where he's kind of not knowing what's going on in his life, and then the bombshell, and then he's wearing black, and he nearly sort of succumbed. I think the original ending George Lucas had in mind was that he was going to turn to the dark side, wasn't it? Which I'm glad they didn't do, but the potential's always there. But people look cool in black as well, don't they? The bad guys always look cooler.
If both it's going to be the last film, you need to have the heroes.
Yeah.
That's why you can't have a love triangle. That's why the whole I'm sorry, but I don't buy into this bullshit that George Lucas had all the twins and everything because it just has the love triangle sorted. You don't have to worry about Luke and Han fighting over Princess Leia.
Yeah.
You don't want the twins. Alex, love triangle sorted.
Yeah, no, I mean, there's no way he had that in mind. I mean, the father thing, maybe I can definitely. I can definitely sort of understand that because a lot of authors and directors probably got a good twist here, I'm going to keep it, but he made up the sister and brother thing on the spot.
Yeah, Han Solo became too popular a character, we need to keep Han Solo in the mix. Sorry, Harrison, you're staying around to the end of Jedi. But yeah, so it's...
Yeah.
What I love about doing these sort of things is when we have a discussion like this, and we end up going in directions which thank you for listening on the podcast land, whatever format you're listening on, is that when we start these, when we start talking, we go into the directions which I never thought would be hitting Star Wars or Marvel, to be honest.
Yeah, they always tend to crop up, don't they? Yeah. But I think that's because they are so, not insidious, that's the wrong word, sort of...
ingrained in our culture.
Culturally, yeah, ingrained, that's exactly what I was going to say. Yeah, so if you were going to sum up for the summary of this podcast, what would you say is your favourite ambiguous film, and why? I
am completely biased. I really am. I mean, okay, I like the ending of Eternal Sunshine, I'll be honest with you, but in terms of longevity, I can't say anything other than Blade Runner, and I've got to do a little tiny nod to Blade Runner 2049 because I walked out of that. The whole gaff situation, that blew me away.
Yeah.
And I know it's about a 3-hour long film, but for me to actually focus on something that small and go, wow, absolutely. I walk out cinema such a happy person.
Yeah.
So Blade Runner.
Yeah, I think I've got two tied for the top. The Thing is my favourite. I think in terms of, they've never had a sequel, it bombed. In that sort of sense, I love just the final lines. We already said it, but let's just wait and see what happens. And it's in your head constantly that night when you watch what did happen after that. And then my other one that ties with that is A Clockwork Orange. Just because in this instance, Kubrick did change the happy ending of the book where he's cured to, is he? Kind of. And I think that's a truly terrifying moment. And it's all downbeat endings, I'm afraid, for my favourite ones. But no, I think they're the two tied for me. I think Kubrick was the master of ambiguity.
He's from a different time, so he could get away with it. I mean, he suppose he could get away with it now.
Yeah, I think he'd still be popular now.
Because if you look at Quentin Tarantino sells. I mean, this is... I try to phrase this in a way that doesn't sound like I'm being derogatory to his output recently, because I think his output, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood still, but Quentin Tarantino can now, because every film he does, with the exception of, say, with a couple, just off the top of my head, with the Grindhouse, he sells himself on his past work. And when you add a new film into the mix, like your Django Unchained, your Hateful Eight, and now your Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, that becomes part of the
landscape.
Yeah. So that when people will take a chance and go and see a Tarantino film just on name recognition alone.
Yeah.
But he's one of the few directors who can get away with it now. People go, it's like you won't go see every Steven Spielberg movie.
No.
But people will go out their way to go and see every Tarantino movie because
you're getting something different.
Yeah, you get something out there. And I'm going to say he goes as far as you'll go and buy a Quentin Tarantino soundtrack just to see what he does with it.
Yeah. I mean, Tarantino's like the film version of going to a different restaurant each night, isn't he? Or picking a different thing on the menu that you do like in a restaurant. Definitely. And it's kind of sad that before the whole sort of 70s thing in America it was the European directors doing everything ambiguous, the New Wave in France, and directors like Antonioni, where he did a film in 1960 called L'Avventura, and there's a it's about this couple that are on an island and they're having problems. And one morning, the guy wakes up and his girlfriend / wife is not there, and there's suspected to be a murder that happens. But in between this plot this is the main plot of the film, and it gets moved to the back burner because all these other things start happening. And by the end, you've even forgot there was someone missing, and that's like that's the great ambiguity that I like in films. You know, where you can take something like a primary plot point, shove it on the back burner, and by the end of the film, you've even forgot what it was.
Or the opposite, you got something like
Yeah.
Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, and you think the whole plot is revolving around the Sharon Tate murders.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's the whole thing. I was waiting for the whole murder.
It's quite uncomfortable, actually, isn't it?
Yeah, I was the entire
Like,
film was in suspense.
Tarantino can do it all.
Yeah. And I'm waiting for this whole big event. Spoilers, if you haven't seen Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, just turn off now. But the ending where it turns out that that's just like this
is what should have happened.
Yeah. And I'm like,
it's
taking our expectations and
boom. And pulling the rug from under our feet, so to speak. I think I did like that. Yeah, because my gut was in knots at the end of that film, just because they even do it like a true crime documentary with Kurt Russell narrating it, don't they? And you're thinking, oh shit, this is gonna happen.
I really wasn't looking forward to the ending. I really wasn't.
Because even the little screen time you get to spend with Sharon Tate in the film, I think Margot Robbie does a great job of. There's other criticisms I've heard about it is that she's not in it very much, and I think that's deliberate though.
Yeah.
You want to get attached to her, but you still want to have that mystery where you think, well, like what could she have done if she had survived, or like, you know, the little things she does in her life, like when she's packing her bag or watching herself in her film, and you think that's the things that were missing because she was killed, and you don't need this whole biography of her and it's just it's pure Tarantino.
I enjoyed it the second time more.
Yeah. I do need to watch it.
I mean, we Brits, we're good at doing these small films that, other than Edgar Wright,
give them a chance, don't we? Yeah.
But
he was small at one time.
Yeah. But we, but I'm trying to say is because we've got like Bohemian Rhapsody, Blinded by the Lie, Yesterday, Rocket Man, you know, we do those quaint sort of films.
Yeah.
I don't think that, you know, there's no disrespect, because Blinded by the Light and Yesterday and Bohemian Rhapsody are three absolutely fantastic films. I absolutely love them. Yeah. But in terms of like ambiguous cinema, it's hard for everyone to get it out now because there's a whole we just want it all look at everything. Hollywood wants it spoon fed in it, and if it is anything like that, one we missed out.
Oh yeah,
Annihilation, and it's staring me right in the face.
Oh right, I thought you meant Mortal Kombat for it.
Annihilation. No, Annihilation.
Yeah, no, totally. Yeah, that's a
British film, isn't it?
Yeah,
it's American funded. I know.
Yeah, well, it's Alex Garland, isn't it? So
and the ending of that, Jesus Christ.
And I think that's one that works better if you haven't read the books or haven't gone past the first book. You know, it doesn't need a sequel for the film.
Ex Machina.
Oh God.
This is saying that Brits can't do anything ambiguous now. This is what happens.
That's one of the most crushed endings I've ever seen. Just
God.
You're not expecting it. Oh. You're expecting like, spoilers again. Sorry. You're expecting like, you know, they've both been a prisoner in this film, haven't they, all the way through? And then you think, oh my God, did they just do that?
Oscar Isaac was the good guy?
Yeah.
Jesus.
What?
No. I apologise for some of our comments about us not being Brits, not being able to do it. Us Brits do it better than anybody. I'm sorry, but Annihilation at the ending of Ex Machina. Jesus Christ. I was getting to, as the film Ex Machina was ramping up. And you're going, well, I can't remember the character's name, the female character.
The robot.
And Domhnall Gleeson, they escape, they live happily ever after because Oscar Isaac's character is gone.
Yeah.
Okay, it's been a great film so far. We're going into the mediocre happy ending then. Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
What's just happened? He walked out of the cinema feeling numb. Christ.
It's that, again, with Tarantino that we said earlier.
Yeah.
It's that sense of grabbing you by the lapels and shaking you because the film knows you're sort of winding down and going, what's this going to be? This is going to end a certain way. oh shit, like, punched in the face.
Remember we saw Last Jedi, and we
Yes.
found out that like, the Annihilation wasn't going to get a single release.
Yeah.
Jesus, I was raging.
Yeah,
I was absolutely raging because Annihilation, I was one of these films I was touting to be brilliant, and then it didn't get a cinema release.
Yeah.
And this is one of these films that should have had a cinema release.
Yeah.
Definitely. And the ending, you know, is Natalie and Oscar Isaac's obviously, and Natalie Portman, you know, the aliens or whatever they are, the Shimmer, going to take over the world because they've lived, and it's like, that's
the thing.
Yes.
Yeah. No, it was so well done. I mean, that isn't essentially, it's ambiguous in the sense of you don't know what happens next, but it was done, and that was an ending I kind of predicted, but it worked still.
Yeah.
You know, they didn't. But yeah, no. I mean, gut punch endings are the best.
Yeah.
And you can't. It doesn't happen very often anymore. I think even with Infinity War, that's kind of I had no clue going in what. I had my own ideas, but I try not to do that too much with the Marvel films. But you know, when they pretty much dusted half the Avengers, and you think, wow, how are they going to get out of this?
Groot got me. Groot.
And especially when you find out that he whispered in
I am Groot,
Raccoon's.
Daddy.
Yeah.
Oh, great with James. It's like I love James Gunn. I really do. And when he revealed that, I was like, oh no, did you really have to tell us?
You bastard.
Yeah. No, that was one that's great when you go into. It's like when people try and tell me spoilers about these films. I'm like, why are you telling me?
I don't understand what people get out of that.
Oh, because I'm here first and I want to tell you. So many people go, oh, have you heard about this? How many times do I have to tell you, Peter? How many times do I have to tell you? I don't want spoilers.
Yeah,
I don't. I don't. I may have read the comic book. I don't, you know, but I want to come into these films not knowing what's going to happen.
Yeah, 100%. I hate. There's a weird science though behind spoilers. You know, there was a theory recently. I don't know if it's recent or it's quite old, but I know about it from reading, where they call it the spoiler paradox, which is like, apparently, if you know the ending of a film going in, it will make you want to sit there more than if you didn't. And I thought, that sounds like nonsense to me. Because it may very well psychologically be true that if you know something's happy or sad, you can prepare for it. But that's the wonder of that medium, that you're seeing something up to its conclusion, and you don't know what's going to happen from one minute to the next.
But it's a film that you want to watch twice, like Fight Club. Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. To me, Fight Club, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Once you know the ending, but not once it's been told to you. You have to experience it. Exactly.
Yeah. Sixth Sense is another one. When you know, spoilers, you should know by now though. Sorry, that Bruce Lee's definitely dead. That Bruce Willis is dead, and you watch it again and you go, shit. Do you know what? Like that scene there, he definitely looks like. You know, there's a scene in it, for instance, where you see him sitting with his wife, who you assume that it's an ex-wife or they're separated, and they're in a restaurant and they're just not saying anything to each other, you know, as couples that aren't friends do. And it's obviously like, you think, oh, they've just met up to sort of smooth things over, but it's not going well. And you watch it again and you think, well, they're silent because she can't see him, he's dead. And I love doing it. I love going through a film again, and you know, I'd like to say about Edgar Wright, his films demand rewatching.
Yes. You know,
and to an extent, the first Matrix film was a bit like this. When everyone had seen it, they were like, "Well, there's way too much to process there. I need to watch that again." And it is still a film that rewards to this day. I mean, I love the first one. Still to this day, I think it's a game changer. But I think even going through it now, I still go, "Oh, I'd never noticed that before," or "Oh, if you see it from this perspective, that's that." You know.
I want to say you mentioned Edgar Wright.
Yeah.
The least well received of all of his films.
World's End.
World's End. I find it a hard watch. And I think
it's the darkest.
Yeah.
I think that's why.
But you watching it, when you watch it from start to finish, and then you find out that Gary King is suicidal.
Yeah.
He has to. This is supposed to be his last night.
His last hurrah.
Yeah. And then when you watch it a second time, once you know and you can see all the signs.
Yeah.
From the AA, from the Alcoholics Anonymous at the start.
Yeah. Oh, completely. Yeah. It's like
it's so complex and it's so brilliant.
It's like knowing that the NWA are behind everything in not from Compton, sorry, in Hot Fuzz.
Yeah.
When you know that it's not just one killer, it's
Well,
all of them.
good.
Yeah, and you know, like going in again, you look at the things. And do you know something I noticed as well from The World's End that you notice on repeat viewings? If you look in the background, there's a poster in a lot of scenes for a particular type of car, and you see it everywhere. And then when you get to what's it called, Newton Haven?
Newton Haven, yeah.
Yeah.
In the third one.
Yeah. When you get to the Newton Haven scenes, you see this. This is the only type of car that town drives, and you think, oh, it's the network giving this car out. You know, and it's in the background. You don't even need to no one even points it out. And I saw it online, and I thought, that's filmmaking. You know, if stuff in the background means something, that's blurred out.
I just want to say, because that if you want great filmmaking, and this is where Edgar Wright blew me away.
Yeah.
Just watch the opening.
Baby Driver. Yeah.
Blows me away every
it's
time
fantastic.
I watch it.
It's so well made. I mean, it's what I imagine would happen if Tarantino made a musical. Baby Driver's a musical, isn't it?
Yeah.
Let's not beat around the bush.
It's as much of a musical as American Graffiti is, and American Graffiti is a musical.
Yeah, and do you know the first thing I noticed in Baby Driver was his jacket? I thought, he looks like Han Solo. And that's got to be deliberate, you know. And it's that sort of attention to detail in Edgar Wright's films that merits and rewards repeat viewings.
Yeah.
You know, and I love films where you can... There are some films that don't work with repeat viewings because that's not what they were made for. But I think the MCU is like this. There's stuff you can go back now that you know the entire Infinity Saga plot, and you can be like, oh... You know, on a lesser scale, and same with Star Wars. There's things in the background that once you know, because of Rogue One was the best example of this. You know, watching Rogue One and then watching A New Hope straight after, it's so rewarding.
Yes,
because it's like the lead-in that actually works for a change. It's not a pointless prequel. It's actually, it's a really well-made film, and the immediate lead-in to A New Hope is so well done.
Just at minutes before.
Because it's minutes before, yeah, exactly.
What is this? Hope. Oh, wow.
Yeah.
But that's, you know, that's... Yeah. Ben Mendelsohn is...
Ben Mendelsohn, yeah.
Love Ben Mendelsohn.
Yeah, he's fantastic.
You're saying about Baby Driver, I was just playing on the soundtrack.
Yeah.
I love Baby Driver. I just think that Scott. The fact that it has two soundtracks.
Oh, I didn't realise it had.
It's two soundtracks because I was a bit annoyed when the first one came out that it didn't have one of the songs on it, which was called New Orleans. I can't find it on here. New Orleans Instrumental.
Oh yeah.
I was like, it didn't have it on it, but it's alright. I've already got that song. Cause I got a bit of a fanboy buzz because it's an REM song, an obscure one, when they had that, and I was like, and having two soundtracks to, I mean, a lot of it. Edgar writes a lot of Tarantino. They cut to music, and and the World's End soundtrack is
it's like a 90s who's who, isn't it?
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
It's one of the that's what I love about this going into. HMV in Leicester sort of £5. Because ever since I've saw that one, every time I go into a record shop, because I can't find them online, and I like to have physical copies.
Yeah.
I'm now after the Hot Fuzz and Shaun of the Dead, because anytime I go into a record shop, I will always browse the CD racks.
Yeah.
Looking for Hot Fuzz and Shaun of the Dead.
Shaun of the Dead's a good one because it's got Queen on it.
Yeah.
You know, but you can't get those two on iTunes.
Yes.
No, because I tend to buy a lot on iTunes because I don't have the room anymore. Perils of still living with your parents, I'm afraid. But they're films that are built around their soundtracks. You know, do you remember certain scenes by the song that's playing during the scene?
I think you've just given us a title for one of our next podcasts. Music and films.
Yeah.
So keep an eye out. We're going to be doing it soon.
There you go.
Music and films.
Do your own homework as well.
Yeah, so it's all like, so that's it. But if you look, World's End, which is the ending of that, well, you know, that's not exactly ambiguous. I think we just got right onto something just going, this is a bit like the Tarantino, the Hot Fuzz commentary.
Which is a fantastic commentary. If you've got it on Blu-ray, watch. It's so good. It just sounds like two nerds geeking out, and it's great.
Buy those glorified coasters, because I enjoy it. I enjoy having Blu-rays because it's better than buying them digitally and only having like the majority of the digital stuff we buy doesn't have anything other than the film.
I mean, some of Amazon Prime stuff has features built in, but you have to watch them right at the end. You can't be chosen. So yeah, I'm still a big fan of extra features on stuff. And Edgar Wright never spoils you. Always spoils you with extra features.
I think I'm going to be listening to that soundtrack very soon. Now this is going completely off. So if you tuned out a while ago, you know what? This has been a really. I've enjoyed doing this podcast.
Yeah, no, it's good. Yeah, it's a subject you could probably go on forever in, isn't it?
I think we should do another one soon on this.
Yeah,
it's kind of gone on a bit.
Two, actually, I think.
Yeah.
I think we could maybe do in a part 2 ambiguous films that don't work.
Yeah.
Maybe that's a harder thing to think of, isn't it?
Other than, of course, Terminator Salvation.
Or the opposite, I suppose. Non-ambiguous cinema that works. So,
yeah.
But I don't know.
If you all keep listening, we'll keep recording.
Yeah.
I think that's been another High Ground podcast.
Yeah,
really good. Thank you for listening.
Yeah, thanks very much.
See you all soon.
See you later.